line with celebrating Women's Month, we continue our coverage of women making an impact across various sectors with a look at the reputation management industry, where one woman is trailblazing a new approach that looks at societal needs, triggers and activism in an effort to help businesses appropriately engage and meet these needs. Lili du Toit says it's critical for businesses to work with their stakeholders at all stages and economic cycles, and she's determined to impart her knowledge and skills to the women she works with and creating job opportunities at a time when South Africa needs them most. Let's rope her into the conversation. A very good evening to you, Lili. Thank you so much for your time. Perhaps let's start off about an understanding on your journey in crisis communications.
Thank you for having me, Mpho. It's a very interesting career, mine, and it's spanned over 15 careers working with multinationals and small businesses. And what's been really interesting is just to kind of see how the crisis landscape has changed over time. And, you know, where we are now is this very exciting moment in time where, you know, with the proliferation of fake news and AI, no business is safe. And my team and I have the privilege of entering an organization where they're often at their most vulnerable and helping them solve problems that are mission critical. And, you know, in doing so, obviously, they're able to not only sustain the business, but also to sustain the jobs and the economic contribution that they make. And it's really that impact that inspires our team.
What are some of the biggest problems you think you've had to resolve over the years if you look at, you know, the importance and the value of crisis communication?
It often comes down to surprisingly simple things, and that is really the quality of relationships and the ability of people to find a constructive dialogue. Looking back over time, and recent issues fundamentally were mostly around social nuance. Big international companies entering, you know, South African markets or other African territories are not really taking time to understand, you know, what matters to their people and their consumers and communities in that market. So that's again where, you know, with the right amount of research and consideration and leading with empathy, it can easily be avoided. But if not, it can have massive repercussions, especially in a time where there are heightened societal expectations. And, you know, we're really seeing that businesses are being held very accountable for their role in that.
Yeah, absolutely. You have worked at numerous companies, working for a global PR firm, and then to branching out on your own, starting your own consulting business. What inspired that move, and what were some of the considerations you had to make before branching out on your own?
It was quite a journey and a scary one at times. I found my time at a big PR firm was an excellent learning school, but ultimately scale is very sexy of offices around the world, but it can be a little bit slow. And knowing that in crisis, every second counts. It's proven that, you know, the average crisis can spread, you know, within the first hour, 28% of all crises. We realized that, you know, we have to be able to be agile and responsive and get as close to our clients and their issues as possible. And that's really what drew us to kind of offer a small niche team that can really run to where we can make the greatest impact. And so we're very pleased again to be able to have the privilege of being close to the inside of organizations. But secondly, it also afforded us the opportunity as women, as a female-led business, to create more opportunities and jobs in our own country. And, you know, it's really helping and training people around us and working with like-minded organizations where we feel we can have a broader social impact.
In terms of your approach, I mean, what are some of the crucial factors that you look at as you strategize and look at a method that you can use when it comes to crisis communication and reputation?
Whereas previously we used to see crisis as this small moment in time, essentially impacting the news media, the entire new shift that we've seen in the industry is that you have to be thinking about it holistically. You know, you can't be thinking about only your employees or your social media following or your regulator. You have to come to the fore and understand what is the business's objectives, what are they trying to achieve, and then how can risk mitigation actually support that and really touch each function. So for us as Third Act, we do not leave any stone unturned. We work with the full bench strength of your C-suite to understand what are the things keeping them up at night. And then also, as much as we look inward, look outward to our societal expectations. So it's really taking a very broad and holistic approach to ensure that whatever we set up is sustainable and actually contributes to your relationships.
What do you think are some of the most critical aspects of effective crisis communication today? More so if you look at the objectives that businesses have and how they can engage with stakeholders during times of crises.
I would definitely say that the biggest thing, and it's a very simplistic term, but we use it quite often in our business, is, kind of clear is kind. As a business, it's really important to be clear on what you have done, what defines your permission space, because it's what you have done that allows you to kind of take a position on any issue and on any crisis. So it's really looking at the response to our societal issues. What have we done to earn a seat at the table and to be engaging with our stakeholders? And very much understanding that it is a dialogue. People enjoy having things done, by them, not to them. And creating a sense of collaboration and a healthy ongoing dialogue is paramount at this stage. And typically those dialogues can anchor around a few things. One is competence, demonstrating that you are good at what you do as an entity and you take that seriously. Another one is transparency. Are you honest? Are you showing up with integrity? And lastly, guardianship, showing that the responsible and the responsibility and the role you've been given in society, that you are a trusted custodian of that. So it very much comes back to what you do, informing what you're allowed to say.
Yeah. What advice would you give to women who want to start their own businesses, or those who are working in communication but want to now branch into reputation and crisis communication?
I would say the time is now.
Yeah.
And it is very scary, but it is well worth the ride. And I'm more and more seeing that there are incredible networks, and similarly so in my career, of women and men actually included, that are creating seats at the table, creating platforms and opportunities. And so it's really, I think, a moment in time for women to step into those spaces. It's an always-on career, but it is something that you can do from anywhere, leaning into the flexibility of kind of work-life balance and the things that we know potentially we as women need to kind of balance the various roles in our life. And it's mission critical, not only for South Africans, but for women looking to advance their careers.
The role of social media in crisis communication, how much of a factor has that had? I mean, you spoke earlier about fake news and the impact that could have on business, on society. What role does social media play?
Social media has entirely changed the game in a few aspects, really. One, all of a sudden, everyone is a journalist. It is really amplifying both accurate and false news. And it's really brought about the advent of both responsible but often irresponsible activism and, a very intense cancel culture. And if you look at, very often there are boycotts or calls to abandon a certain product or brand on social media, and the repercussion may be that a share price of the company plummets. Only 53% of companies generally after an attack like that might, recover within a year. But the broader societal impact is that potentially people might lose jobs down the line, and companies will have to do what they need to do to be profitable. So as much as social media has really impacted, how quickly issues spread internationally, there's also a broader societal impact in terms of what that information does to businesses and, the people who run them.
And very lastly, Lili, before we let you go, as you take a look at the political atmosphere in South Africa, the changes that are taking place, what messaging do you think it will be vital and crucial for South Africa's stability and diversity, as well as growth in terms of society and the economical aspect of growth in South Africa? What sort of messaging and approach do you think the country needs to take in telling a good story?
I think firstly, if we take a step back as audiences and consumers of news and information in this context, it's vitally important to understand, is this accurate information, and are the claims and the information we're sharing essential and responsible to a healthy South Africa? I think that's really, really the onus is on us as people and audiences of the messages, people who are living in the political climate, to do the best to do so responsibly. And I do also think that it is a moment, broadly speaking, for the nation to consider it a moment of opportunity and coming together. And I do think if we can do so with a level of generosity of spirit, I think that is a message and also exemplifying essentially the foundations that our democracy is built on, and really a spirit that we should take forward in the next year as we adapt to the new changes and political climate we're all part of.